Now, the concept of change for most people is not something that is all that unfamiliar. We've thought about it from time to time. But why it is important that we constantly revisit what needs to be done to achieve change is because it is relevant for each and every one of us. It's relevant for us professionally, it's relevant for us personally, and it's relevant for us culturally.
This is my first experience hearing Dr. Picariello, and I'm really grateful because I've been struggling with these very questions that he brought up today. I liken it to a coach. I mean, it is a process, and for him to give language to this complicated process, for me, was very hopeful and enlightening.
I think Dr. Picariello really did a wonderful job. The most important point that he mentions is that change has to do with self rather than looking to the external world. I think he presented in a very kind manner, and that if we can look at our own roadblocks and try to push through those and look to our resources, we really can make good changes in our lives.
Why do people struggle to change themselves? People struggle to change themselves because it's highly personal. People think about changing the world because it's more identifiable. And we think about making those small differences that can lead to a better quality of life. It needs to begin with a simpler process. Now, what I do is I take 3 models, and I call it mind flexing. I take 3 models that I've known for the last 20 years in mental health care. And it's cognition, by the way in which we think. It's performance enhancement, which harkens to my athletic career when I was in high school and college, which is what we call sharpening the mental blade. We're going to become a student of self, ladies and gentlemen. And that's called mindfulness. Threats are coming into our world. 2 specifically. 2 threats. A threat to our values and threat to stasis. We have a gross fear of failure. This resistance to change that follows is what everybody knows, that everyone has done, and it's called complacency. Then we're going to find something about that change that we find enticing. How do we find some aspect of change enticing? And this is what I call life equation. There are a number of variables in everyone's life that constitute who we are, how we live, and the decisions that we make. When we determine our life EQ, our life equation, now we have the best chance at making those changes. So when we're thinking about making changes, we ask ourselves what obstacles lie in our way. And in my attempts to try to conceptualize and explain to people what changes were like, I developed a model, and I call it the cognitive superhighway. In a world of technology, which is a wonderful thing, we have gotten so oversaturated to the idea that if we get lost, we need to rely on something else. So now I want you to imagine that your GPS is not working properly, that you left your phone at home, that it's on the fritz in the car. And we need to think about how we're going to get to our destination on our own. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how we evaluate and determine our level of resiliency. When you think about making those changes, what's your location? What are the coordinates in your life that need the most attention? Because now GPS, it's not working, folks. Now we're going to change what GPS is. It's no longer a global positioning system. It's our gestures. It's our personality. And it's the very situations that we find ourselves in. If your GPS gets you to where you need to be, where do you fit in? Because now we have another system of coping. This is an educational system of coping. Where do you fit in? The concept of mindfulness. What and how you attend to life. What you're attending to and how you go about it. And there are 3 ranges by which we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful of ourselves, we need to be mindful of our audience, and we need to be mindful of our environment. Let's get in touch with our own emotional recipe, shall we? What's our menu for the day? Everyone's recipe is different. It's highly variable. But what you have to do as a person who really wants to engage in change is ask yourself, can my recipe be flexible? As we navigate mindfully, we want equal attention to self, to be mindfully attentive to yourself, your world, and your audience, and you're navigating more effectively. When we use this process, we break down change. We make it more manageable and digestible. Change, ladies and gentlemen, is not that difficult if you break it down. Change lies in simplicity.